All right, shalom, shalom. Barakatah Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Rakakwadash. Double honors to our apostles and elder bishops here at Great Millstone. Shalom to you, Akim. All right, you brothers that have been bringing forth the truth. All right, with all sincerity. Okay. And who have been really serious about, your transition, from that darkness to the light. Okay. Name of this lesson is The Scornful Will Lose. Keep watch. Very simple. All right. The scornful will lose. Keep watch. All right. Um, Jake has a problem. All right. Jake has a major problem, and is deeply rooted in scorn and despising the ways of the Lord. And I'm talking about from the slanderers, you know, all the way to the mockers, the scoffers. All right. Was deeply rooted inside them is scorn. They really hate the Lord. All right. And it's kind of crazy, right? Because you got, these individuals who, call themselves leaders or Israelite leaders, whatever they put up, they have a position they're teaching Israel, but deep, deep, they're deeply rooted, okay, in scorn because, whenever certain topics come up, all right, they really despise it. They get all emotional, all right, and they go gun ho when it comes to, just slandering, all right, without no fear. They become, you got men that have become apostates, who came in, literally infiltrated, you know, just to learn the doctrine so they can dismantle it, and I find it, and I've heard elders say, that, those guys, you know, might have been, plants, personally, I think so as well. But all in all, everything is on par for the course. There's nothing right now that's not, you know, uh, out of order, except for those guys, right? But everything that's happening, all right, is because of prophecy, you know, and that's why prophecy is so important to pay attention to. And these guys, for some odd reason, they're disconnected from the major issues that's going on in the world, mainly with Esau, Edom, their enemy. So the word here for scorn, okay, it's this feeling or attitude of contempt, contemptuous treatment, mocking abuse, all right? So the feeling or attitude of contempt. Let's go into that word contempt. Here it says open disregard or disobedience. That's what it all boils down to. Jake is just disobedient and have always been disobedient. They have always, as the scriptures say, they have always resisted the spirit of the Lord. They could never understand the Lord, or his will. That's very common when you look into the history, and it's very common now, you know, in this day and age. Proverbs 29:8. Scornful men bring a city into a snare. All right. Scornful men bring a city into snare. These guys are compromising. They can dismantle, whole communities. Right? Just that one person. And the saying is true, one apple can spoil a bunch. And that's why we're told to separate ourselves. All right. And that's why, scriptures call for us to be, separate, all right, holy, okay, sanctity, all right, chaste, okay, because you are who your friends are, all right, and that's why we depart from these individuals. You know, scornful men bring a city into a snare, and one person, a few people can single handedly bring down a whole, you know, I don't, for some odd reason, I don't want to use the word movement, but for lack of better words, they can bring down the whole movement. But, you know, it's a controlled demolition. All right. This is the Heavenly Father's controlled demolition. All right. And so the people that's fallen, they were what they scriptures say that they were, and the elder went into it last week, I believe. All right. Let me see. Ordained to this condemnation. They was ordained to be condemned. It's very scary, man. Okay, that's why we pay attention to what's really going on and what's really important. Because the scriptures say men shall wax worse and worse. That's what we're seeing. So we on par for the course. Everything is falling in line. Ain't nothing out of course. You know, you got those Israelites that say, man, well, we can't just get along and all this other stuff because they don't understand what's going on through the spirit. And they don't understand the spirit of this book. They don't understand the Lord. There's always been confusion. There's always been division. There's always been a faction of Israelites who are opposed to the will of the Heavenly Father, posing themselves to be sons of God or, you know, men of the Lord. Okay. They're sons of God, true indeed, but they're not men of the Lord. Okay. And what's deeply rooted in these individuals, whether they be scorners, all right, slanderers or mockers. What's scornful is the same thing as a mocker, but whether they be slanderers or mockers, okay, what's deeply rooted in them, right, is contempt. All right, open disregard or disobedience. That's what it's all boiling down to. It's very simple. And it says what? Scornful men bring a city into a snare. And a snare is what? Ultimately, it's a trap. It says here, noose for catching animals. Right? And most of these individuals are caught up. Okay. Isaiah 28. They're caught up and they're not even playing in the game. They're not even in the game. You know, they got all these, you know, you got people debating. They got all these, you know, they got their whole itinerary filled out. They got all this stuff, you know, debate here, you know, what do you call them when they sit down and talk and they just, you know, go back and forth? Not as in the debating sense, but just exchanging ideas, whatever, you know. They got everything, you know, figured out and it's like geared towards the truth, but these dudes are completely off. Right? Isaiah 28:13, Salakia. But it says, but the word of the Lord Yahweh was unto them precept upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line, line upon line, here a little and there a little, that they might go and fall backward and be broken and snared, caught up and taken. Right? Because again, there is no real intent. You know, they're really disobedient. All right, next precept, Proverbs 22:10. It says, "Cast out the scorner." Well, let me finish this. It says, "But wise men turn away wrath." All right, because the wise man is gonna beware of, you know, the trespass. The wise man is going to see and be prudent, and foreseeth the evil, you know, and hide it themselves. So they're going to basically get in alignment, whether it's repenting, whether that's singing the right tune, all right, telling, bringing 100% truth. Okay, that's what this is about. It's about the 100% truth, and 100% truth is sound. All right, it doesn't contradict itself. All right, and most of these dudes, they just contradict themselves. Whether it's from Tazariak to Deacon Akan Hassad, they all contradict themselves, and really, they make the Most High a liar because they're trying to speak on his behalf, but don't understand. You're not really speaking on his behalf. You're twisting his words, and that's a very grave offense. And those dudes are in danger, and they don't really understand to what extent. Proverbs 22:10, it says, "Cast out the scorner, and contention shall go out." So that's why dudes, they get lost, so to speak. They get lost. Okay, get lost. Cast out the scorner, and contention shall go out. Yea, strife and reproach shall cease. All right. Because if you don't get away from them, you gonna go down with them. If you don't rebuke them or correct them in any way, shape, or form, you can be a party to a crime. That's how the Lord deals. Ezekiel, the 3rd chapter. You know. So, yeah, let's move on. Okay, we got that out the way. All right. So, what these guys are really suffering from, right? Is they're fornicators, spiritual fornication. Okay, and I want to apply the spiritual sense to this. Ecclesiasticus chapter 19, verse 2. Wine and women, it is literal, okay, but you can apply it spiritual, because wine and women could be likened unto philosophy, and that's why I got Proverbs 7 here to kind of explain that further. Wine and women will make men of understanding to fall away. Very true in a literal sense. And he that cleaveth to harlots will become impudent. Impudence is stupidity. Let's look it up. All right. And that harlot is that woman, that strange woman, which we're going to go into in Proverbs, the 7th chapter. Impudent. Without shame. See, that's how these guys moving, is without shame, shameless. Okay. Shameless. Okay. Because they cleave into a harlot, which is what? Different doctrines. And it could be your own feelings, your own emotions. Okay. Proverbs 7:1, my son, keep my words and lay up my commandments with thee. This is important. Keep his words. Keep my commandments and live in my law as the apple of thine eye. Meaning keep it as a precious thing. All right. Keep it near and dear to your heart. Bind them upon thy fingers, write them upon the table of thine heart. Say unto wisdom, thou art my sister, and call understanding thy kinswoman. All right. So that wisdom you can apply. What she's likened unto a sister. She's likened unto a kinswoman, your flesh, right? That they may keep thee from the strange woman, which is what? Philosophy. Okay. Because wisdom is likened unto a woman or your sister. Right? You get it, right? From the stranger which flattereth with her words is other doctrines. because it can seducing spirits that can entice you uh, to serve another way, to to accept different tenets. Okay, accept a whole nother way, secretly or openly. Okay. For at the window, and it's going to explain these guys. Okay. All right. For at the window of my house, I looked through a casement or my casement and beheld among the simple ones. I discerned among the youths a young man void of understanding. Okay. And that's most of Israel, man, void of understanding. Passing through the street near her corner. So they plan on the corner. They plan on her corner. Everybody know about her corner. And he went the way to her house in the twilight, in the evening, in the black and dark night. You see that? You can apply that to it um, to the times, And behold, there met him a woman with the attire of an harlot and subtle of heart. You see, subtile of heart. Those are very gentle, you know, right? And these dudes get enticed because they want to play around in areas and think that they they won't be had. Okay. And that's why they were always warned to stay away from certain people. Okay. Because again, you constantly in these circles, and you constantly being enticed, right? You debating, you going among these people that's in the world. You trying to pitch Israel. You trying to trying to get your name out there, trying to get the group's name out there. Yeah, the UPK. Not understanding that you being enticed and your sanctity is not sacred anymore. Your chastity is not sacred anymore. You open yourself up to these different spirits. So eventually, the point of all of this is they're gonna fall. And behold, there met him a woman with the attire of an harlot and subtle of heart. Right? You running into a fornication. You run into a whole nother doctrine. Okay. And these guys will warn, but eventually, you get the gist. What's gonna happen? They're gonna fall. All right, they're gonna fall.